If you're a guy or a girl who considers himself a bit of a lone wolf, like you don't conform to society's rules, that you don't need other people, that you go your own way, then I have an alternative way of looking at things for you today. And I think this concept that I'm going to put forward to you is worth listening to and is an interesting one, because for a very long time I considered myself a bit of a lone wolf, like I didn't need anyone else, like I was going to succeed in spite of everyone. It felt like everyone was trying to hold me down. And I've changed the way that I think about things, and that's come because I've been reading a book recently, and it's taught me some things about the way the human brain works that are undeniable. They're proven by science. And so this has got me thinking about how I see the world and how it relates to my relationship with other people, and in particular my relationship to isolation, loneliness, and being alone. Because all of those things are mixed together, but they are not the same things. And so I want to start by saying that humans really haven't evolved much in the last 100,000 years. And the reason that we are the most prolific species on this planet is one particular reason. We aren't the strongest, we're not the fastest, but we are one of the most intelligent. And we developed quite early on the ability to communicate and to work together. And it is that power alone that has allowed the human species to spread as much as it has on the planet and to be so successful. And it is why we are at the top of the food chain. If we didn't have this ability to communicate and to bond and to form relationships with people, we would not have lasted as long as we have. If we'd have had the same attitude towards relationships as say a bear or something like that, that's a very solitary animal, then how long do you think we would have lasted out there in the wilds with saber-toothed tigers running around? Not very long, I can assure you. It was the fact that we were able to bond together, to look after each other, to share resources, that allowed us to succeed as much as we have on this planet. And I think we forget that. And what we don't really consider is that that part of our brain that was developed over thousands of years to help us survive is still there. And the problem we have today is that society and the world that we live in is evolving so much faster than we can keep up with. And so we now don't have to directly rely on other people for our survival. We can get food delivered straight to the door. Most of us in the Western world have a roof over our heads, clothes on our back. We have access to clean drinking water. We've kind of sussed out all of the basic necessities that our ancestors would have really struggled to find without a group of people. And so I think guys especially find themselves with this attitude that they are somehow a lone wolf, that they do not need anybody else, that they can do their own thing. And I want to tell you that the part of your brain that needs other people, that is designed to communicate, to form relationships and to bond with other people, is still very active. And if you still don't think that's true, I want to ask you a question. If you think that you are so independent, if you think you are this lone wolf who doesn't need other people, that you're going to do your own thing, then ask yourself where the food that you eat comes from. How does the food come from the ground and end up being eaten by you? Because what happens is that a farmer plants those seeds and harvests that stuff. Then a delivery driver takes that food to your local supermarket or grocery store. Then you have somebody that runs the supermarket that facilitates all of this logistics happening. Then there's a cashier that serves you that food. There is normally a boss or somebody that pays your money so that you can exchange that money for that food. So whether you're directly reliant on people or not, you are still very much reliant on people. Who do you think lays all the miles of electric cables, gas cables and water pipes that go to your house? Who do you think maintains all of that stuff? You see, whether we like to admit it or not, we are entirely reliant on other people. The society we live in now makes it feel like we are isolated, makes it feel like we don't need other people, but we do. And I find it scary, the amount of people that feel that they can go against their base instincts of having community and connection, because we are not designed to live like that. And whenever I make a video like this, it's quite often triggering to a lot of guys that hear it, because they have become so entrenched in this idea that they are a lone wolf. And if that is you, and you have an open mind, or you can be open-minded, then I would invite you to consider why you have this attitude. What is it that made you feel like you had to become a lone wolf? That is the question you need to answer yourself, because I can assure you, from belonging to a men's group and seeing it throughout my life, that when a man has a sense of belonging in a community that he feels accepted in, he changes for the better. There is no part of him, there is no part of that process that makes him a worse person. I have seen people that are so isolated, that are agoraphobic, that have come to community groups and felt like they were beginning to fit in and belong, and seen them physically transform. Their body language opens up, their voice gets louder, and I've seen them grow as individuals. And when they grow as individuals, their cups overfill, so to speak, and then this goodwill and this generosity and this feeling of connection spills to the other people that are around them. The book that I'm reading at the moment, I'll link it in the description because I can't actually remember the name of it, but talks about the actual science of socializing and connection, and the actual chemical processes that go on in the brain when we socialize. And one of the things they talk about is the default mode network. And what that is essentially what your brain defaults to thinking about when it is idle, when you've got nothing that you are giving it to focus on. And when I think about this, where my brain normally goes, what happens typically is that it thinks about people. And this is what this idea that this book presented, and I never really thought about it until then, but quite often when I am just daydreaming, my daydreams typically, I would say 75-80% of them are involved with other people. So I might be doing something with someone else. Sometimes if I'm pissed off or angry, I'm having an argument with someone in my head. But whatever it is, I'm interacting with an individual. And just think about that for a minute. Why would your brain default to being social when it is switched off? You know, this is such a crazy thing as well. They did this study in the book, and there was something about giving people maths equations to solve, because they wanted to know how quickly the brain switched to this default mode network of thinking of people. And what they found is that when they presented someone with, say, 10 math questions to answer, obviously they would have to engage logic to answer the first question, then the second question, and the third question. But between each question, in the milliseconds it took them to switch from question 1 to 2, 2 to 3, their brain would connect back to the default mode network and be considering people. The other thing that happens when we connect with other people is that our brains are flooded with dopamine. And our brains flood with dopamine to reward us for doing things that are useful to us, that allow us to survive and proliferate on this world. So anyone that thinks they're a lone wolf, you're fighting against your own DNA. You're fighting against your own brain chemistry. You cannot control the way your body and your brain has evolved over the last 100,000 years. You just can't fight it. And so having this lone wolf mentality is dangerous. yes, you might be able to thrive in that environment, but you're thriving in spite of seeing other people, not because of not seeing other people. And I hope that makes sense, because we need other people. This is something that is, the more time I spend in self-reflection, the more time I spend making this content, the more time I spend with other guys, the more obvious it becomes that society these days is just so disconnected from where we were supposed to be. We don't have communities like we used to. Even going back 100 years, you know, everyone was a lot more religious, so people had the church as a community. People had the pub. You know, I grew up in a pub, and that was the thing. Every Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, most of the locals in the village were at that pub, and whether you were a big drinker or not, it didn't matter. That's where you met your community. Pubs are closing down. People are less religious. There are less and less opportunities for humans to connect, and there are more and more opportunities for us to isolate ourselves. You know, I play video games, and those video games are becoming better and better at hooking us in and giving us dopamine, replacing the dopamine that we're missing from having this community connection. The foods that are being manufactured, you know, full of sugar and salts, and the perfect balance of all of these things, sugar, salt and fat, to stimulate dopamine in our brains. The dopamine that we used to get from these healthy means of interacting with other people is being replaced by products. And it's fucking terrifying. You're not a lone wolf. You might be acting like one, but your brain chemistry says different. And if you were put in an MRI scanner or a SPECT scanner with someone that is being social and you're not, your brain would tell the story. You may say whatever it is, whatever story you're telling yourself about being a lone wolf, but if you were to scan in your brain, you'd see that you have lower levels of dopamine because you don't have that community connection. And I know this is going to be triggering for people, because for the longest time I thought I was a lone wolf. I thought I didn't need other people. But I do. And there's a strong correlation between the way that I feel and the amount of time I spend around people who love and accept me. Really good example of this as well. As anyone that follows the channel, you'll know that I had a long career in sales and I quit because it wasn't giving me the same benefits that it used to. And so I'm temp working at the moment, and I'm doing some jobs for the post office. So just delivering mail, that kind of stuff. And yesterday and the day before, I wasn't really feeling my best self. And I had isolated, and I'd spent a large portion of the day before playing video games. And I really didn't want to go to work, but I did. And the people at the sorting office are the friendliest, nicest people you can hope to meet. And the job is low pressure. And so this combination of not feeling totally stressed about the task that I have to do and feeling welcomed and accepted by the people that are there changed my mood in the space of like 10 minutes. I was that close to calling in sick, thinking that I don't want to go, I can't be bothered to face other people. But within 10 minutes of being in that sorting office and having a nice chat and feeling welcomed by people, my brain chemistry completely changed, and that has spilled over even into today. So if you are one of those guys that thinks you are a lone wolf, there are an awful lot of very big influencers, let's just say, I'm not going to name any names, that push this message that you need to be more alpha, that you need to stand apart from everybody else, that you need to earn more money and you need to get in shape, and all of those things are going to help you stand out and be alpha. You're going to be far healthier and happier fitting in. And I don't mean fitting into society in general. I think there's a lot of poisoned messages in society, but I'm talking about fitting in with a group of people that love and accept you for who you are. I hope this message has resonated with you if you are someone that considers themselves a lone wolf, because I've met very few men that would consider themselves lone wolves that seem happy. They have all the outer accolades of success sometimes. They have the money, the car, the house, whatever. But very rarely do they seem happy. They're always chasing the next goal. And in actual fact, what their biology is telling them to do is to fucking find some people that love and accept them. That would love and accept them regardless of whether they had money or a car or a nice house. That just love them because they are them. Let me know what come up for you in the comments. This is a topic that, like, I feel super passionate about. We are becoming so disconnected in society, and I think the solution is not that complicated. So let me know in the comments what came up for you. If you like the way that I see the world, you can sign up to my newsletter in the link in the description. And I'll see you in the next video.